In 1961, MGM released a sword and sandal potboiler movie called Atlantis: The Lost Continent. For a vintage movie, it's amazing how after all these years, this movie's plot is as timely as today's CNN headlines. Belligerent imperialist politicians of technologically superior Atlantis hatch a plan to deploy their latest weapon of mass destruction, a crystal laser cannon, to launch a shock and awe preemptive war against the rest of the world's militarily inferior nations, in a brutal campaign to consolidate a one-world Atlantean order. Scientists of Atlantis, preoccupied with transforming working-class citizens and illegal immigrants into a subhuman labor force through mind control and genetic manipulation, fail to heed clear warnings of impending catastrophic Earth changes. Of course, the movie's dramatic climax comes when Atlantis is thankfully swallowed up into the ocean before her sociopathic politicians can launch their evil global assault. Entertaining Hollywood fiction, or is a significant truth embedded in this movie melodrama that suggests a highly advanced civilization once flourished on this planet long before recorded history? And moreover, does the great work of the ages, pursued by contemporary secret societies and fraternities, involve a covert plan to fully restore that ancient lost high culture? Could it be that there is nothing new at all about the New World Order, and that it is in fact a ruthless scheme to resurrect an ancient occult totalitarian order designed to once again reduce the entire human population into hopeless slavery? Evidence of this vanished high civilization is fragmented and scattered all over the world. Yet to reassemble the tantalizing fragments that have been found begins to reveal a glimpse of just how advanced that lost culture may have been. The epic poem of Vedic antiquity called the Mahabharata tells of amazing flying machines called Vimana, powered by Mercury engines that allowed men to visit the stars, and the deadly Brahma weapon that decimated whole armies with a flash of fire as bright as 1,000 suns, leaving survivors to die days later of a horrible sickness described with uncanny likeness to the effects of modern atomic radiation poisoning. Could it be that the great work of the ages has been a meticulous secret operation to preserve the arcane knowledge and science of that high civilization lost in the fog of prehistory, with the intention of resurrecting it yet again as the modern civilization we experience today? By tracing the origins of contemporary secret fraternities and occult societies, we discover Freemasons, Illuminati, Zionism, and even the Nazis derive much of their mystical lore from one common source: Babylonian occultism. Of course, it is from the Tigris-Euphrates Valley, the cradle of civilization, that the origins of contemporary human history can be traced, with the rise of Sumer, an amazingly sophisticated human society that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. According to legend, the Sumerians themselves attributed the source of their wondrous cultural skills, agriculture, architecture, and science, to the teachings of extraterrestrials called the Anunnaki, more specifically to the instructions of Oannes, their ancient god described as part man, part fish. The Sumerian culture gradually evolved into the Empire of Babylon, a word which in itself means gateway of the gods. Babylon was noted as the birthplace of the mother of all sciences, astronomy, and as well alchemical sorcery known as Kabbalah. One of the primary objectives of Babylonian magic was mastery over materia prima, the very fabric of time and space. And it is this key fragment of lost Atlantean technologies, the hermetic secret of materia prima, that has been preserved by ancient priesthoods and after many centuries passed on as the occult alchemy or practical magic still utilized by modern secret societies today. The esoteric knowledge originally expressed in the craft of stonemasonry is based on these traditions. Sacred geometry, which comprised the core teaching of any genuine mystery school of antiquity, was incorporated into the design of buildings that enabled them to function as resonant cavities, which were attuned to the dynamic energies that pervade the cosmos. The basic tenets of sacred geometry were taught in ancient mystery schools in countries as geographically diverse as India, Britain, and Egypt. At the beginning of the 6th century BC, a great portion of the Jewish population was conquered and exiled into Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar, where they would remain for nearly half a century. During this exile, a faction of the Jews adopted the Babylonian system of magic and sorcery. These Jewish heretics rejected the God of the Old Testament because he forbade the practice of magic, and instead embraced the forbidden knowledge of Babylonian mysticism. In Babylon, these heretical Jews, who refused to purge their religion of pagan influences, incorporated into their Talmudic traditions the adopted practices of Babylonian magic. By ancient account, this Babylonian magic was delivered by the Anunnaki into the awaiting hands of the original priestly class. It is a means of occult control whereby we humans are kept in a cycle of perpetual ignorance, like the Ouroboros snake with its tail in its mouth. The Babylonian priesthood thereby served as proxies for hostile aliens to influence the course of human history. Yet embedded within the Babylonian occult Kabbalah were fragments of the secret alchemical science that survived the demise of the high civilizations that had vanished thousands of years earlier. Over ensuing centuries of Jewish migration, these occult Talmudic traditions eventually spread into Spain and Eastern Europe. Jesuit founder Ignatius was born of Jewish blood at Loyola in the Spanish Basque Country in 1491. Serving as a young soldier, he was wounded in the leg at the siege of Pamplona and was obliged to undergo a long convalescence. During this recovery, he became profoundly influenced by the Alumbrados, an emerging occult movement founded by Spanish Marranos, baptized Jews who secretly kept their Talmudic faith. The Alumbrados, who took their name from a Spanish word meaning the illuminated ones, were a heretical secret society of Gnostic mysticism formed by people of noble blood who believed that a person's soul could reach a state of perfection and union with God in their present life, and upon attaining such state they could commit any criminal or immoral acts without staining their souls. From these teachings, Ignatius formed the Society of Jesus, later known as the Jesuit Order, which demanded of its brotherhood a high degree of academic scholarship that eventually earned them great power and prominence within the Catholic Church. Some 200 years later, in Ingolstadt, Bavaria, Adam Weishaupt was born of Jewish parents, but when his father, George Weishaupt, died in 1754, young Adam was turned over to be raised by the Jesuits. His godfather, Baron Eckstadt, was curator of the University of Ingolstadt, and by 1771, 23-year-old Adam Weishaupt was himself a lecturer of canon law at the university. But a significant association with Kolmer, a Danish Kabbalist Jew who had just returned from Egypt, radically changed Weishaupt's life. Kolmer initiated Weishaupt into the secrets of Osiris magic, the Kabbalah, and the Alumbrado movement. Kolmer's occult knowledge made a deep impression on Weishaupt, who later chose the Egyptian pyramid as the Illuminati symbol of power. It is believed that Weishaupt was recruited by Mayer Rothschild, founder of the Rothschild banking dynasty, whereafter Weishaupt formed an occult group called the Golden Dawn, dedicated to Osiris, the New Age of Aquarius, and the New Atlantis. On the 1st of May, 1776, Weishaupt founded his own Bavarian version of the Alumbrado movement, which he called the Illuminati. After one of their secret meetings, one of their members, Comte de Verrieux, declared, "I can only tell you this is much more serious than you think. The conspiracy which is being woven is so well thought out that it will be, so to speak, impossible for the monarchy and the church to escape it." He later denounced the Illuminati. Upon discovering the anarchist intentions of this order, the Bavarian government outlawed the movement. But nothing was to deter Weishaupt's focused intent. He and his order assumed false names and soon began to cooperate with other Masonic lodges, especially the Grand Orient, in order to infiltrate them. The great strength of our order lies in its concealment. Let it never appear in its own name, but always covered by another name, another occupation. By 1794, the Duke of Brunswick, Grand Master of Germany, declared that the Illuminati had gained control of all the Masonic lodges. The stated purpose of Weishaupt's Illuminati was to establish Novus Ordo Seclorum, a Latin phrase for New Order of the Ages, a global program for world domination to be achieved by abolition of all ordered national governments, abolition of inheritance, abolition of private property, abolition of patriotism, abolition of the individual home and family life as the self from which all civilizations have stemmed, and abolition of all religions established and existing, so that the Luciferian ideology of totalitarianism may be imposed upon mankind. Weishaupt demonstrated his adept skill of alchemical social engineering. Far more than a fraternal political movement, Illuminism used ritual occult techniques in order to manipulate the collective social consciousness, to covertly gain power for its diabolical practitioners from the life force energy of the unsuspecting masses. In other words, it engaged in alchemical technique, allowing them to feed like parasites off the latent energy of materia prima. And Weishaupt's successor collaborated on an ambitious plan that would engage this alchemical social engineering on an industrial scale. Giuseppe Mazzini of Italy was a 33rd-degree Mason who replaced Adam Weishaupt as head of the Illuminati in 1834. Mazzini appointed America's Albert Pike as Sovereign Pontiff of Universal Freemasonry and coordinator of the Illuminati U.S. activities. Pike was a Tennessee Ku Klux Klan judicial officer. A known Satanist, Pike indulged in phallic worship and the occult. He wore a satanic Baphomet symbol around his neck and used his bracelet to summon Lucifer. Pike used the KKK to keep blacks out of the Masonic lodges. In a letter to Mazzini dated August 15, 1871, Pike graphically outlined a blueprint for 3 planned world wars. World War I would weaken, topple, and destroy the powerful Tsarist government in Russia. World War II would pit Great Britain against Germany, destroy Nazism, and create the Zionist state of Israel. World War III would be ignited by fueling aggression between the Zionists of Israel and the Arab world, who would eventually destroy one another. Social, political, and economic chaos would then force the masses to accept one world army and one world government ruled by the Illuminati. In Pike's famous Masonic guidebook called Morals and Dogma, he writes, "Lucifer, light-bearer, strange and mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning, is it he who bears the light? Doubt it not." The great work of the Illuminati blueprint successfully engineered World War I and World War II like clockwork, with each conflict bringing the occult ruling elite one step closer to their goal of totalitarian conquest. Advanced weapons technologies spawned by both American and German physicists during World War II had fully accomplished the age-old alchemical quest to steal materia prima down from heaven and capture it in material form within this world's three-dimensional existence. The power of the atom was harnessed by the United States Army's Manhattan Project during the war, and on July 16, 1945, in an act of wanton technological sorcery, that power was unleashed by the Trinity atomic bomb test in New Mexico. A group of American scientists, led by Dr. Robert Oppenheimer, gathered in a remote area of New Mexico known as Jornada del Muerto, or Journey of Death. There at 5:29 a.m. on July 16, 1945, the United States military detonated the first ever atomic bomb. The world had come full circle from the lost civilizations revealed in the Mahabharata, and appropriately, Dr. Robert Oppenheimer, the atomic bomb's designer, uttered the Vedic invocation, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The following month, both Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, were destroyed by atomic bombs. But mastery over the atom only fueled the occult cabal to secure domination over materia prima on an even grander scale. Following World War II, rumors flourished that the Nazis had secretly developed anti-gravity flying machines, a product of torsion field technology gained from extraterrestrials. And yet, the fundamentals of manipulating materia prima with torsion technology had been fully described by the famed inventor from Croatia, Nikola Tesla, in 1908. Every ponderable atom is differentiated from a tenuous fluid, filling all space merely by spinning motion, as a whirl of water in a calm lake. By being set in motion, this fluid, the ether, becomes gross matter. Its movement arrested, the primary substance reverts to its normal state, stillness. It appears then possible for a man, through harnessed energy of the medium and suitable agencies for starting and stopping ether whirls, to cause matter to form and disappear. At his command, almost without effort on his part, old worlds would vanish and new ones spring into being. He could alter the size of this planet, control its seasons, adjust its distance from the sun, guide it on its eternal journey along any path he might choose through the depths of the universe. He could make planets collide and produce his own suns and stars, his heat and light. He could originate life in all its infinite forms. To cause at will the birth and death of matter would be man's grandest deed, which would make him the master of physical creation, make him fulfill his ultimate destiny. Thus, genius inventor Nikola Tesla explicitly revealed the alchemical secret to dominion over the very essence of primal universal power sought by man since the days of ancient Babylon. Towards the close of 1898 in Colorado Springs, Tesla's research confirmed the Earth to be literally alive with electrical vibrations, which spurred him to design a device that would enable transmission of this power in unlimited amounts to any terrestrial distance and with virtually no loss of potency. Hence, Tesla relocated his research operation to Long Island, New York, where in 1901 he proceeded to construct his Wardenclyffe Tower, the prototype transmission station for this unlimited power source. To fund this ambitious project, Tesla sought monies from his financial benefactor, J.P. Morgan. But when Morgan learned that this project would generate unlimited, free electrical energy worldwide, Morgan not only refused to finance the project, he ordered Tesla to immediately dismantle the Wardenclyffe Tower. At this point in the story, most researchers bewail the triumph of robber baron greed over free energy liberation. However, the untold story behind Wardenclyffe was the obvious weapons potential of Tesla's tower, and upon realizing this, J.P. Morgan may have cautiously sought to sequester this technology for future nefarious elitist purposes. In 1908, a mysterious explosion leveled 500,000 acres of pine forest in a remote region near the Tunguska River in central Siberia. The blast was attributed to a meteor, yet it created no crater, and excavations to a depth of 188 feet yielded no nickel-iron meteor fragments. Subsequent exchanges between Tesla and Morgan suggested this blast may have been a practical weapons demonstration of his wireless power transmission project, a precursor of the modern scalar weaponry we know today as HARP. But another variation of Tesla's torsion technology may have been advanced as well by the Third Reich during World War II, with their mysterious top-secret Die Glocke or Bell project at the Risa complex in Poland. This cylinder device generated tremendous torsion field distortion by counter-rotating mercury plasma, yet exactly for what purpose is unknown. While it was argued that the Nazis failed in their attempts to develop an atomic bomb in the closing months of the war, it is also quite likely that they abandoned their atomic bomb research in favor of a vastly more powerful device, a plasma wonder weapon generating more destructive force than even a hydrogen bomb. Whatever its use, the Bell project and its designers vanished just before the end of the war. And yet speculation remains that the Nazis had brought the plasma cosmology of the stars and even the galaxies themselves down to a device as small as a camping trailer, and were using it to manipulate directly the fabric of the physical medium of space-time itself. But ever since the Allied victory in 1945, torsion manipulation physics have disappeared into deeply classified research and development projects far from public scrutiny, thanks to the fascist Illuminati sympathies of American corporate and intelligence interests. The post-war Operation Paperclip installed virtually autonomous Nazi empires into both the CIA and NASA to serve the United States military-industrial complex. Central Intelligence Chief, the former Nazi Major General Reinhard Gehlen, could manipulate Cold War rivalry with the Soviet Union to fuel Wernher von Braun's massive NASA rocket program, both serving as covert fronts to supply vast amounts of monies to finance clandestine physics research in South America, research that likely included the Bell. Skull and Bonesman George Herbert Walker Bush was instrumental in securing secret funding for these operations through his Texas-based Zapata Oil Company by funneling illegal drugs into the United States from his offshore oil rigs, which likely earned him the codename Poppy and later directorship of the CIA. In addition, a major war planned in Southeast Asia would further secure CIA domination of lucrative opium production. But by 1961, President Dwight Eisenhower, upon leaving office, warned of the looming fascist threat of the military-industrial complex. And again in April 1961, newly elected President John F. Kennedy explicitly declared the growing national danger of secret societies.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no secret is revealed. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
During his brief presidency, Kennedy began systematically and single-handedly dismantling Washington's entire occult intelligence operation. Kennedy's intentions were to destroy the CIA, end the Cold War, disengage from Vietnam, and even override the national monetary monopoly of the Federal Reserve Bank by issuing interest-free United States Treasury notes. Thus, to preserve the Illuminati power network, Kennedy's assassination became an imperative, and his murder in Dallas was openly accomplished in classic ritual sacrifice Masonic fashion. With Kennedy's removal, the covert Illuminati money machine recovered its momentum and has been rolling like a juggernaut ever since. But more than a murder of political expediency, John F. Kennedy's assassination was a profound public demonstration that the occult cabal had, as of 1963, secured total national domination. Whistleblower Fletcher Prouty reminds us the lone gunman cover story has come from the lips of every subsequent president and the pop media and their spokesman. They are experienced, intelligent people who are aware of the facts. Consider the pressure it must take to require all of them, without exception, to quote the words of that contrived cover story over and over again for nearly 5 decades. That assassination has demonstrated that most of the major events of world significance are masterfully planned and orchestrated by an elite coterie of enormously powerful people who are not of one nation, one ethnic grouping, or one overridingly important business group. They are a power unto themselves for whom these others work. Neither is the power elite of recent origin. Its roots go deep into the past. One of the profound fundamentals of this Kabbalistic Illuminati alchemy was that human consciousness can directly affect materia prima, and that great power can be gained for alchemical practitioners by manipulating human consciousness and as well through ritual human sacrifice, and Kennedy's murder accomplished both. The purpose of the magical act served to brutalize the American group psyche. The hermetic virus or social idea pattern embedded in Kennedy's assassination is: resistance to central establishment control is useless. Counterculture alternative to such control is counterfeit, emanating from the establishment itself. The total degradation of the planet is unavoidable entropy. The extinction of the human species is unavoidable. The re-inhabitation of the earth by the old gods is our stellar destiny. Thus the unstated great work of the ages Illuminati subtext is to resurrect the ancient high civilization of occult Atlantis. Funding for American psychological warfare studies as well as all manner of advanced science, everything from geopolitics, genetics, social engineering to physics had been established through the empire of money, the Ford, Carnegie, and Rockefeller foundations. By their influence over the media, these corporate interests could also engage directly in propaganda and other psychological operations. A classic early example of psychological warfare was the 1938 Columbia Broadcasting System's radio version of War of the Worlds, which created accidental and unfortunate hysteria and panic throughout the United States. Listeners tuned in to what they thought was a real Martian invasion. This radio broadcast was funded indirectly by the Rockefeller Foundation through the Princeton Radio Project and guided at every stage by members of the Council on Foreign Relations, including psychologist Dr. Paul Lazarsfeld. Actor Orson Welles, the creator of the program and the news announcer of this infamous broadcast, later apologized for the hysteria this radio show created. Frank Stanton, who later became head of CBS Radio and Television, and Dr. Hadley Cantrell hired Orson Welles to adapt the H.G. Wells classic science fiction book, The War of the Worlds, into a radio drama format in order to study the behavior of citizens under panic conditions. Orson Welles concluded his dramatization with an apologetic disclaimer that it was only intended as a Halloween prank, but to its producers, the program was purposely crafted to create terror. This very first electronic mass media psychological operation was heard by 6 million people, 1,700,000 of whom believed the broadcast to be genuine, and 1,200,000 of whom were frightened enough to take action, either by running away or preparing to fight the invaders. By interrupting what seemed to be a regular music program with a terrifying news bulletin was deemed excessively cruel, manipulative, and deceptive. Allegedly, Orson Welles even received death threats from the Rockefellers should he ever reveal that the unforeseen reaction to this broadcast was precisely what its perpetrators had hoped to achieve and analyze, demographically, psychographically, and statistically. Dr. Hadley Cantrell later wrote a paper entitled The Invasion from Mars, a study in the psychology of panic, which examined the power of the radio broadcast media and its effects upon a population under direct influence of fear. This first electronic stress test was just in time for the dawn of the age of television. Only 2 years later, again with Rockefeller Foundation money, Cantrell established the Office of Public Opinion Research at Princeton. Among the studies concluded by the OPOR was analyzing the effectiveness of propaganda produced by the forerunner of the CIA known as the OSS, or the Office of Strategic Services. During World War II, Edward R. Murrow, also a CFR member, was paid by the Rockefeller Foundation and Dr. Cantrell to monitor Nazi radio propaganda and judge its effectiveness. From this project sprang the FBIS, Foreign Broadcast Intelligence Service, which eventually became the United States Information Agency, used by the National Security Council as its chief disseminator of propaganda after World War II. After leaving CBS, Frank Stanton became chairman of the RAND Corporation, an extremely influential government think tank which researched, among other topics, mass brainwashing of an unsuspecting public through the mass media. Just 4 years after the Orson Welles broadcast, the whole world was at war. In 1941, Military Intelligence Director General William Wild Bill Donovan sanctioned development of an Americanized version of Nazi psychological warfare propaganda techniques, which was defined as full-spectrum dominance over all aspects of a target population's interpretive and decision-making faculties by employing all of the techniques of mass communication propaganda and the all-important component, the calculated application of terror. What better place to test the new theories of psychological warfare than among our native populace, the most turned-on, tuned-in, mentally massaged nation on Earth, the United States of America. And after the war, perhaps the greatest Nazi wonder weapon of all, the German invention television, showcased at the 1936 Berlin Olympics, became the primary propaganda Trojan horse that would ultimately invade every living room in America, an insidious tool for domination over the worldview perceptions of our entire society, truly a weapon of mass deception, and the perfect venue for the exploitation of a new scientific technique of opinion molding called the engineering of consent. This mind control program had been perfected by Edward Bernays, nephew to famed psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud. During World War I, Bernays had adapted it from German propaganda techniques. Due to negative implications surrounding the word propaganda because of its use by the Germans, he promoted the term public relations, a mind control technique designed to create news in order to appeal to the instincts and fundamental emotions of the public. Bernays cynically declared, "We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. It is they who pull the wires which control the public mind." And since World War II, the modern myth of UFOs has been carefully crafted by the mass media using these same PR techniques. In July 1947, the United States Army reported capture of a crashed flying saucer near Roswell, New Mexico. On September 15, 1947, just 2 months later, President Harry S. Truman signed into law the National Security Act of 1947, which created the National Security Council and America's first peacetime civilian intelligence organization, the CIA. First CIA Director Walter Beadle Smith encouraged UFO reporting as a means of PSYOPs disinformation to protect existing secret aircraft projects. In the summer of 1952, Smith sent a memorandum to the director of the Psychological Strategy Board outlining the CIA's proposal to the National Security Council, stating the UFO issue presented clear implications for psychological warfare. Smith went on to state, "I suggest that we discuss at an early board meeting the possible offensive or defensive utilization of these UFO phenomena for psychological warfare purposes." It's important to note that Truman's National Security Council has been predominantly managed by members of globalist societies, the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission, which over the years has included such familiar individuals as Nelson Rockefeller, Robert McNamara, McGeorge Bundy, Allen Dulles, and Gordon Gray, former head of Truman's Psychological Strategy Board. Such notable men formed a subcommittee dealing with science and technology, a critical link between the corporate financial world and government-held secret technologies, a control nexus over rocketry, space, alternative energy research, and even UFOs. It is also important to note that when President Truman originally mandated formation of the CIA in 1947, there was no provision for congressional oversight. Pied Piper of the Aliens from Space Gospel was famous UFO contactee George Adamski, who was later dismissed as a con man, and Howard Menger followed suit as a man who copied a con man and whom during one television interview admitted as much. Yet once again, dismissing Adamski and Menger as UFO conmen crackpots is not as simple as it seems, because solid evidence exists that at least these two individuals were acting as part of an intelligence-backed operation. Menger also admitted that he worked for the CIA and that his story was part of an experiment to test public reactions to the idea of extraterrestrial contact, to see how easily and who specifically could be fooled into believing anything. Adamski, who claimed to be in contact with a distinctly Aryan-looking blonde spaceman from Venus, was actively supported and assisted by the CIA for the same purpose. This became known when scientists attempting to discredit Adamski were warned off by CIA Director Allen Dulles in person. And research has shown that during tours of Europe and Australia to promote his message, Adamski traveled on a passport furnished by the CIA. During a 1953 speech, Adamski even calmed an anxious crowd by assuring the audience that the CIA and the FBI had cleared his statements. The idea that contactees, such as Adamski, should have been spreading their message with the blessing and backing of the CIA seems at first bizarre. However, when we consider the very real benefits for psychological warfare purposes of setting up and monitoring such experiments into the way that cult beliefs spread and the influence that they have over certain segments of the population, the motive becomes apparent. In 1917, Marxist John Dewey, father of modern public education in America, stated, "You can't make socialists out of individualists. Children who know how to think for themselves spoil the harmony of the collective society which is coming, where everyone is interdependent." As well, John Dewey was the first political person to publicly recognize the social engineering potential of a perceived threat of an invasion from outer space when he stated, "The best way to unite all the nations on this globe would be an attack from some other planet. In the face of such an alien enemy, people would respond with a sense of their unity of interest and purpose." In 1955, upon retirement from an illustrious military career, General Douglas MacArthur told the New York Times, "The nations of the world will have to unite, for the next war will be an interplanetary war. The nations of the Earth must someday make a common front against attack by people from other planets." Decades later, President Ronald Reagan expressed a similar theme at the United Nations when he said, "In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us realize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world." Dr. Carol Rosen, former assistant to famed German rocket scientist Wernher von Braun, claims he warned her repeatedly before his death in 1977 that a series of events were being prepared to engineer a false flag Armageddon, including a staged alien invasion. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We are going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens, and all of it is a lie. Henry Kissinger, a member of the Bilderberg Group, Council on Foreign Relations, and the Trilateral Commission, raised suspicions that the New World Order would play the fake alien card in the future when he made the following statement at the 1991 Bilderberg Conference held in Evian, France. "Today America would be outraged if United Nations troops entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow they will be grateful." These statements span 70 years and 2 world wars. Yet the people who would use the mass media to terrorize an unsuspecting population stand ready again to promote a similar scenario. The radio broadcast of The War of the Worlds may have been a precursor to a grand finale, fake outer space alien invasion. Every year since their first 1954 meeting at the Bilderberg Hotel in the Netherlands, the secretive Bilderberg Group, comprising elite power brokers from Europe and North America, has met to discuss and influence the changing global political, economic, and social landscape. Dotted amongst the usual suspects, Rockefeller, Kissinger, and Soros, we see the presence of renowned Hollywood filmmaker Steven Spielberg, who attended the 1999 Bilderberg meeting at Sintra, Portugal. But what business does Spielberg, a stellar chief of the entertainment industry, have secretly mingling with international bankers, military intelligence, and world political leaders? Since the 1970s, Spielberg has directed or produced 7 of the top 20 grossing films of all time, including the most successful alien UFO films of all time. From Close Encounters of the Third Kind to E.T. to Deep Impact to the TV miniseries Taken, and not the least of these being his own version of War of the Worlds in 2005, all of which depict alien invaders from outer space. Spielberg is clearly a tool of the elite. He has almost single-handedly crafted the national public perception of extraterrestrials, and the success of his efforts may be reflected in Roper public opinion polls that claim 80% of the American population believes in UFOs. Spielberg's involvement with UFO psyops was directly implicated in a document purported to be the transcript of a classified 1980 briefing with newly elected President Ronald Reagan. CIA Director William Casey openly revealed to President Reagan just how a careful psychological program was using the media to carefully craft a public perception of the UFO phenomenon. The first person who helped us with this disinformation program was Mr. George Adamski back in the early 50s. As well, this briefing revealed the CIA supervised all productions of UFO-related movies. This helps the public to keep their minds open, but also allows us to keep our secret aircraft away from the public's knowledge. The first cooperative venture was the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. That was a cooperative venture with the United States Air Force and the movie industry. We provided the basic subject matter for the movie Close Encounters. Reagan's CIA director, William Casey, a former corporate lawyer, later boasted, "We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false." We have been and are being conditioned. It's no strange coincidence that top Trilateral Commission and Hollywood lieutenants like Lawrence Rockefeller and Steven Spielberg have been either funding or fomenting this alien paradigm. That is not to say the entire UFO research field is controlled, but the stranglehold at the top represents elite manipulation and social engineering. The technology to pull off this hoax is in place. The historical precedents are documented. It will only take one declaration from the President, one staged attack on an American city to convince the people of a universal threat, from which only a centralized one-world government will be able to protect us. The empire of money fully controls the mass media, and the mass media fully controls the public perception of UFOs. In other words, threat of an alien invasion offers the ultimate alchemical solution to Adam Weishaupt's original Illuminati goal: abolition of all ordered national governments, so that the Luciferian ideology of totalitarianism may be imposed on mankind. In 2011, National Geographic aired a television documentary entitled When Aliens Attack, which emphasized that the International Academy of Astronautics had developed a draft protocol for communicating with aliens, which was presented to the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space in the year 2000. The protocol states, "In the case of the confirmed detection of an extraterrestrial signal, signatories of this declaration will not respond without first seeking guidance and consent from a broad-based representative body such as the United Nations." This begs the question, would the mass arrival of aliens in our skies finally secure the submergence of United States sovereignty and national independence to an all-powerful one-world government? The secret agenda of the Illuminati. The fundamental psychological warfare perceptions embedded within the UFO phenomenon are: humanity is helpless, its technology is outclassed, it must submit to the guidance of an alien elite, a master race. With these goals explicitly revealed, the PSYOPs intent of the 1951 20th Century Fox motion picture The Day the Earth Stood Still is perfectly clear: submission to the guidance of an alien elite. Having demonstrated the invincible power of his robot policeman, Alien Klaatu issues his final ultimatum. Your choice is simple: join us and live in peace, or pursue your present course and face obliteration. We shall be waiting for your answer. The decision rests with you. In 1958, Freemason and Texas Senator Lyndon Johnson issued this policy statement on the status of our nation's defense and the race for space. Control of space means control of the world. From space, the masters of infinity would have the power to control the Earth's weather, to cause drought and flood, to change the tides and raise the levels of the sea, to divert the Gulf Stream and change temperate climates to frigid. There is something more important than the ultimate weapon, and that's the ultimate position. The position of total control over the Earth. That lies somewhere in outer space. Presently, based on extraordinary advances in geoengineering, a new generation of scalar weapons exist, whose deployment can easily be masked as acts of God. The new millennium culture of plausible deniability has secured the technological capacity to wage war by engaging weather phenomena, earthquakes, or solar events against an enemy or its population undetectably. With the vast secret resources and weapons technologies this culture of control now has at its disposal, it has become fully capable of destroying not just a city or a nation, but an entire planet. This occult culture of full-spectrum dominance has become an autonomous breakaway civilization unto itself, leaving the rest of human society dangerously irrelevant and vulnerable. But far more than economic or political or military control, the great work of the high Cabal fraternity has now turned its psychopathic obsession for domination over fundamental human physiology itself. This Frankenstein program, innocuously introduced by Freemason Newt Gingrich in 2001 as the Age of Transitions, showcased the National Science Foundation's transhumanist eugenics agenda to establish on this planet a new species of totally controlled, bioengineered humans. Inevitably, the cybernetic enhancement of human performance is sneaking up on society. Dynamic advances in artificial intelligence technology are swiftly replacing human viability in our culture. In fact, the present exponential growth of bioengineering and computer technologies is about to marginalize the human factor altogether. Science tells us that by 2045, humans will become obsolete, replaced by vastly superior artificial intelligence, AI. Chemtrails, degradation of the environment, GMOs, global warming, economic collapse, and transhumanism are blatant hallmarks that Adam Weishaupt's Novus Ordo Seclorum, the new order of the ages, is being fully engineered right before our eyes. The full-spectrum recreation of old Atlantis, a masterful achievement of alchemical social engineering. But the question remains, why would generations of secret brotherhoods offer themselves as willing accomplices to the degradation and demise of their own nations, their own planet, and even their own species? To participate in such pathological schemes is irrational, suicidal folly. And evidence strongly suggests that occult rituals have allowed ancient alien masters to manipulate their human proxies in a long-term program of preparation for their eventual overt appearance. One of the clever tricks of social alchemy has been to convince the masses that the universe is an empty abyss, a lifeless vacuum wherein our feeble conscious thoughts are utterly powerless and ephemeral. Both of these ideas are manifest lies. The universe is truly an ocean of awesome latent energy. The materia prima in which we exist is the very source of our existence, and this medium can be influenced and molded by human thought. This is the great secret that has been jealously guarded by occult fraternities all down through history, so that a handful of hermetic practitioners can fully hoard this awesome power unto themselves. The alchemy they understand and wield is collective intent, focused and magnified through ritual ceremony. In turn, this focused intent acts upon the medium and then manifests as physical reality. And in truth, this medium can be accessed by anyone at any time. But until the mass population awakens from the mesmerizing sorcery that keeps them powerless, they will never liberate themselves from the clutches of the ancient occult tyranny that has strangled humanity for so very many centuries. But to remain entranced, they likely risk the same doom as did that other Atlantis so very, very long ago.